Right, this video has really become necessary because of all my previous studies and all the scholarly works I read from the book of Daniel. I've come to realize something about Daniel and Jewish apocalyptic literature that I didn't understand too clearly before, and I'm going to explain it in this video. So I came across a video by a brilliant theologian, scholar, air quotes, Dwight Nelson. He's going to claim, and you're going to see a clip, it's about 2 minutes, maybe almost 3 minutes, the Apostle John copied from the book of Enoch when he put his words in the book of Revelation. He thus reasons that, well, if the Apostle John can copy from, and here's just one volume of a 2-volume set of the book of Enoch, which I'm going to talk more about. He said, well, the book of if John can have the book of Enoch open and he can copy it and not cite his sources, and well, if Ellen White does the same thing, then that's good, right? That's his reasoning, his brilliance. You know, as I was putting this together and watching this Dwight Nelson video, I just said, you know, either Dwight Nelson, he's either a complete fool or he's a deceiver. He's a complete fool in regard to his complete and total ignorance on what this is a 2-volume set that I have, by the way, on the book of Enoch actually is, and what scholars know about the book of Enoch. He's a complete fool because he doesn't study it and understand it. Or maybe he does understand it, in which case he is a deceiver. You pick which one he is, because he's one or the other. Perhaps a little of both. Now let's start here with what the book of Enoch is. Let me explain this to you, and look here. So the book of Enoch, there's basically 3, I'll just, in a large sense, I'll call them books, even though the books themselves are divided into pieces, which you're going to see here. The Ethiopic, the Slovenic, and the Hebrew Enoch. We're going to deal with the Ethiopic Enoch in this video. Enoch is Jewish apocalyptic literature. All the Enochs, Hebrew, Ethiopic, and even sections within those books were written, scholars believe, all at vastly different times. But the Ethiopic one, Enoch, we have, is the oldest of the 3. By the way, none of these are canonical writings. They claim to be written by Enoch. No, they're not written by Enoch. It's clearly not biblical writings. Here's the way some of the chapters are organized. So I'll just go through this briefly. Chapters 1 through 5 is an introduction. You can kind of see some of the things it introduces. Now this is just the Ethiopic Enoch, because that's what I'm going to focus on here. Chapters really 6 through 36. Fallen angels, intercourse with women, that's the Genesis chapter 6. And you can see here in chapter 37 to 71, and on and on and on about the chapters. But these chapters are then arranged like this. This is the most frequent ordering of this Ethiopic book of Enoch you're going to see. The book of the Watcher, the similitudes, the astronomical writings. So you may read something about the book of Enoch, and it'll say, in the book of the Watchers in Enoch, and you're like, what is that? Am I reading, is that a separate book, something called the Watchers, or is that in Enoch? No, that's just the way they describe it. So the book of the Watchers is indeed, it's the first 36 chapters in the book of Enoch. Or if they say, well, the book of the similitudes, well, those are chapters 37 to 71. So they'll speak of them like they're their own separate books, but they are indeed within this singular book here of Enoch. Now, let's look at the screen here. This Ethiopic book of Enoch we're going to use. The dates differ widely on the different sections of it when it was written. Some of it they believe is clearly pre-Maccabean, that's about the 164 BC. Some of it's early Maccabean, and they say some even late and after Maccabean. Now here is a key point. This current manuscript in the Ethiopian language that we have today is from, scholars think, it was written about 350 to 650 AD. That manuscript does not exist. The manuscript that we do have, that they think was written from the 350 to 650 AD, is from the 1500s. That's 100 years away from Shakespeare, by the way. It's another way to think about it. It's a pretty big gap between the original writing of Enoch and the copy that we have in our hands, the 1500s. That's the Reformation. Now, the content of the book of Enoch is largely dependent upon the Old Testament. And the book of Enoch is influential to a certain degree in the New Testament. Now, why do I say that? Because the book of Enoch was widely read by Jews in the first century who knew about the Jewish apocalyptic literature. So, did the Apostle John have a copy of the book of Enoch open and in his lap when he's going through, as you're going to see Dwight Nelson say, the Apostle John's going to say, I saw, and really the Apostle John's going to be a deceptive literary thief like Ellen White, and he's going to go, I saw, and he's going to have one eye open and go, okay, let me copy this verse here of Enoch while I use my I saw statement and be deceptive. Right. So, we're going to listen to Dwight Nelson make that claim. The Apostle John copying from the book of Enoch. I want you to listen closely to what he says. He says the Apostle John is quoting from the book of Enoch. But look at his examples closely. He never shows a full sentence. We will, but he doesn't. Let him tell you in his own words.
You jot this down, please. Apparently, divine inspiration allows for the inspired writer or prophet to consult and quote non-inspired sources for his divine revelation without giving credit to those sources. Amazing. Not only does he quote pagans, he doesn't even give credit to the pagan source he quotes. Wow. What's going on here? What's going on here is divine inspiration. That's what. Isn't that something? Because I'll tell you what, that is precisely the most repeated charge the critics have leveled against Ellen White, charging her with blatant plagiarism and the use of other sources with the intent to deceive her readers by not giving credit to those sources. Just like Solomon didn't, just like John the Revelator didn't give credit to his uninspired sources. Do you realize that? That the book of Revelation is laced with an uninspired source? Did you know that? It's called the book of First Enoch. It's part of what's called the pseudepigraphal, the false writings. Straight out of the false writings, John quotes, and by the way, hold on, he even quotes the uninspired source to describe his I saw visions. An uninspired source to describe his inspired visions, and he borrows it all. Watch this. Here's some examples. Put it on the screen for you, please. Well, no, we need to do this one first. Did you know that John the Revelator actually borrowed multiple lines from a non-inspired source and quoted them? Would you just quickly jot in that word, quoted, and quoted them as if they were his own words? Now let me give you some examples. What is more, let's get this going here. What is more, he borrowed the non-inspired author's words for some of his I saw declarations. Now that's a very important point because that charge is made and reiterated today. I want you to see that the precedent is the great and inspired prophet John. All right? All right, so let's take a look at First Enoch. Here's First Enoch chapter 40, verse 1. After that I saw. Okay, that's Enoch writing. After that I saw a multitude beyond number and reckoning who stood before the Lord of the spirits. John comes along in Revelation chapter 7, verse 9. After these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, standing before the throne. Looks awfully familiar to me, doesn't it? Let me share with you. First Enoch chapter 86, verse 1, and I saw, and behold, a star fell from heaven. Revelation chapter 9, verse 1, and I saw a star fallen from heaven. What's going on here, ladies and gentlemen? Amazing. In fact, one list, would you jot this down? One list shows 22 lines from the book of Enoch that John borrows in order to write the book of Revelation. All of it, by the way, without giving any credit at all. Shall we call John the apostle? Shall we call John the Revelator a plagiarist? Nobody breathes that thought.
All right, we just heard Dwight Nelson claim the Apostle John copied from these non-canonical Jewish apocalyptic literature sources and used them as his sources and didn't give credit. So in his mind, right, if John can do that, then well, so can Ellen White. So, is the Apostle John guilty of plagiarism? Is the Apostle John guilty of plagiarism to such a gross degree that he's quoting from some non-canonical, somewhat silly book? I mean, if you pick this up and read it, first of all, let me just say this. Even making the comparison, Seventh-day Adventist, you want to try to make this comparison between the Apostle John. So is the book of Revelation inspired by the Word of God? It is or it isn't. And I think most Adventists would say that it is. So what does Adventists do? They want to compare that to Ellen White's work. Soon as you compare the Word of God to Ellen White, you're putting them on the same level. So don't tell me that you don't think Ellen White's writings are on the same level. This whole conversation and what Dwight Nelson just did for us in video has just put her writings on par with the Bible in terms of comparison. So that's the first problem. All right. Now, let's examine his charge. He cites two scriptures from Enoch and Revelation. Let's look at them. Here is Enoch 40, verse 1, and Revelation 7, 9. There it is. Thousands and thousands, 10,000s, multitude stood in front. Oh, there it is. There's the Apostle John copied the book of Enoch, right? Here is where the ignorance of Dwight Nelson shines brightly and shines through. Enoch chapters 37 to 71, and he just quoted chapter 40. 37 to 71, you can go back and look at this video, are the similitudes. And you know what I know, and you know what scholars know about the similitudes? They come from the book of Daniel. Uh-oh, we got a problem. Now look here. Revelation 7:9 is actually from Daniel 7:10. It's not from the book of Enoch, because Daniel, of course, predates this book of Enoch by hundreds of years. The similitudes come from the book of Daniel. So the Apostle John didn't copy from Enoch. The source for Revelation 7:9, it's not Enoch. It's Daniel. It's the book of Enoch that copied the book of Daniel, as it does other books of the Bible. I ran to Leviticus, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Genesis. The book of Enoch is full of citations from the Bible. It's not the other way around. Dwight Nelson has just insulted the God of the universe by claiming the book of Revelation is from this non-canonical source when it is not. It's this source that copied the book of Daniel. Like I said, Dwight Nelson's either a fool or a deceiver. I'm kind of leaning towards fool at this point. It's God who inspired the book of Revelation. And to claim the Apostle John stole from it, it's an accusation I wouldn't want to make. Go ahead, Dwight Nelson. You stand in front of the God of the universe with your accusation and do that. That the book of Revelation has in it end-time events similar to the book of Daniel, it's not news. Let me just show you one. The 10-horned beast. Daniel 7:7 about the 10 horns. Revelation 13:1 and the beast rising on sea with the 10 horns. Now, Daniel and Revelation work together and outside of the book of Enoch. And it's the book of Enoch in the similitudes, 37 to 71, that copies from Daniel. So, number one, Dwight Nelson, gone, you're wrong. Now, the next verse he cites is Enoch 86:1. He makes the claim that Enoch 86:1 is the source for Revelation 9:1. Remember what I said, he never shows us a sentence. We're going to look at the whole sentences, and we're going to see, and I'm going to show you my Enoch translation in this book right here, the one I just held up. It's a 2-volume set. You can see here that's volume 1 in front of you, the Hermania commentary series. And we're going to look at Enoch 86:1 from that series. Just read it with me. And again I saw with my eyes as I was sleeping. I saw the heaven above, and behold, a star fell from heaven, and it arose and was eating and pasteurizing among the cattle. Okay? Read Revelation 9:1. And the fifth angel blew his trumpet, and I saw a star fall from heaven to earth, and he was given the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. Are these two sentences even the same? They're only the same in that there's a star falling from heaven. But the star falling from heaven in Enoch does what? Look at it again. It arose and was eating and pasteurizing amongst the cattle. I got a star falling from heaven that's going to be eating grass with cows. And you're telling me that's Revelation 9:1? That's your star? Again, Dwight Nelson, you're a fool or a deceiver, and I'm really leaning towards fool, at least very heavily towards fool. All right, so, yeah, you can state that Enoch, I mean, really, can you state Enoch 8, just reading them? Can you really say, read Enoch 86:1 or Revelation 9:1 and say, oh yeah, they are exactly the same. Apostle John copied from Enoch 86:1. I mean, if the Apostle John has cows as stars falling from heaven, eating grass with the cows, you got me there then. Then I'll agree with that. But until you can show me that, no. It gets worse. Enoch chapter 86 is in the context of Enoch 85 and 87, and they all appear on the same page, and they all are part of the same story. I want you to look at Enoch 85, 6, and 7, where I highlighted the titles of each. Look at Enoch 85, really under verse 2. It's really, the whole thing is a history of Adam to the fall of Jerusalem. Big time span. We got Adam and Eve and their children. Look at 86. What's the title for 86? 86 is the fall of the Watchers and the violence of the giants. Well, that's 86:1. That's where Dwight Nelson says Apostle John copied the Enoch 86:1 and made it Revelation 9:1. Now we're talking about something called the Watchers. And then we got divine judgment and Noah and the flood. Well, what are the Watchers? In this book, scholars know that Enoch 86 is related to Enoch 6. Let's look at Enoch 6. Because remember what the title was, it was Watchers. Enoch 6 says this, verse 1, verse 2 that is. And the Watchers, the sons of heaven, saw them, that's the women, desired them, and etc. That's Genesis 6, 1 through 4. Now remember, Enoch 86:1 is about the fall of the Watchers. Who are the Watchers? You see them here in front of you. That's the Nephilim. That's Genesis 6, 1 through 4. Look again at Revelation 9:1. Is Revelation 9:1 about the fall of the Watchers and anything to do with Genesis 6, 1 through 4? The content of Enoch 86 and the Watchers is really nothing more than an expansion of what's going on in Genesis 6, 1 through 4. And then, what's it say in Enoch 86:1? The star fell and is pasteurizing with the cows. It's eating grass with the cows. It's a vegan star, so it must be a good Seventh-day Adventist star, because it's a vegan. Now, no, the Watchers that are referenced in Enoch 86:1 are not Revelation 9:1. Only an ignorant fool would make that kind of claim, as Dwight Nelson has. So what we're going to do now is, let's just take this example one step further. Here's something else that I learned. So we got a star falling from heaven. Right, just a simple phrase. Let's ignore everything else around it. Let's be good Adventists and just focus on phrases and ignore passages. A star falling from heaven. So is the idea of a star falling from heaven unique to the book of Enoch? No. It's called Isaiah 14, 12, and 13. And look with me here. How you have fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn. How do you cut down to the ground? You lay the nations low. Enoch 86:1 is about the Watchers. And further, as I studied Enoch 86:1 and the relationship to other chapters in Enoch, it became clear that the verse in Enoch 86:1 is a reference to Genesis 6, 1 through 4 and Isaiah 14. The Apostle John did not copy from the book of Enoch. It's the book of Enoch copying from Isaiah and Genesis. Sorry, Dwight Nelson, you keep getting it wrong. In his desperation to rescue Ellen White and her plagiarism charge, Dwight Nelson does some completely, utterly thoughtless things, and you just saw two of them right here. Now, given that Seventh-day Adventists are simply birds, parrots, they just repeat what each other do, we're going to look at another book here. We're going to look at this one right here, which you can see on the screen. And we have here by Judd Lake, Ellen White Under Fire. It's funny, every time I read this title, I want to say Ellen White on Fire, because I think Ellen White's on fire for Jesus right now. So Ellen White Under Fire, 2010. And look what he does here for us on pages 120 and 21. And I put check marks on the pages. I underlined page 120 in red and says what? Judd Lake says, And John borrowed lines from the book of Enoch that he used in Revelation. Oh, he's such a good Adventist bird. Give this guy some birdseed. Now, the two green check marks are the two that we already covered. Those are the two that Dwight Nelson copied from. So that leaves 4. Here's what I'm going to do. Of the remaining 4 red check marks, I'm going to go in detail on one of them. But I looked at the other 3. And you know what the other 3 are? They're just like we saw on the other 2 examples that I just did. They're partial quotes of phrases where the Adventist says, oh, there it is, he copied from Enoch. When you just read the sentences, you go, no, they're not even the same. And then I read them in the actual scholarly commentaries. And you know what? No, they're not. The Enoch itself is copying from places like Daniel, Isaiah, Jeremiah. So the Apostle John is not copying from the book of Enoch. It's the book of Enoch copying from these other sources. And just like we did on that one example with the star falling from heaven, eating grass with cows, you're going to find the same kind of stuff in the other 3 of his explanations. But I'm going to go over one of them in detail. Because he does something that was just... I couldn't make it up. This biblical scholar wants to tell me that Enoch 91:16 is Revelation 21:21. Okay? Remember this. Enoch 91:16 is Revelation 21:21. Let's go read Enoch 91:16. Read with me here. Here's Enoch 91, and read verse... Can I get a volunteer to read verse 16 for me? It just says what? ... Those verses are missing. Why does Enoch chapter 91 missing verses 11 through 17? Remember, it's Judd Lake here who says that Enoch 91:16 is Revelation 21:21. Enoch 91 doesn't even have 91:16. What happened to those verses? Well, you know, I know what happened to those verses. That group of verses that's missing that you just saw in chapter 91, they are disputed verses. Scholars believe those verses actually belong in chapter 93. Look with me here. And if you look at chapter 93, you'll see in the middle where I put some arrows, here's Enoch 91:11 through 17, that they stuck in the middle of chapter 93. Now, once again, modern archaeology refutes Adventism. So remember what this brilliant scholar said. He said that 91:16, right, is Revelation 21. Now, scholars recognize that 91:11 through 17 really belong in 93. And they've known that for about 100 years. But you know something they didn't know? And I'm going to tell you that here in a minute. And this is where archaeology refutes Adventism. We found the Dead Sea Scrolls, the 1950s, in cave number 4, which you can see here, were found scrolls of Enoch. And they found big chunks of fragments in Aramaic, which they never had before. They always thought it was maybe in Aramaic, but they could never prove it. Now they proved it in the 1950s. And here's a picture of some of those manuscripts. And Cave 4 had many, many manuscripts, some of which are from chapter 91, and these manuscripts are actually dated to about 200 BC. So remember, the Ethiopic manuscript that we have today in the Ethiopic language is from the Reformation era, the 1500s. Now we got fragments going back to 200 BC. Woo, went way back, and some of those fragments are from chapter 91, and the verses that we are interested in, which is 91:16. So, what did they discover about that? Here's what the archaeologists discovered in the Aramaic manuscripts. The Aramaic manuscript on chapter 91, verses 15 and 16, are so vastly different than the current manuscript that we have. The scholars threw up their hands and said, we cannot tell you what Enoch 91:15 or 16 actually is, because the old Aramaic and this 1500s Ethiopic are so different, we can't reconcile the differences. That we don't even know what it actually is. But you see what he did, what Judd Lake does in his book, though, he just presents it like it's fact. Well, you know what? The scholars, and by the way, here's some other scholars that I use. This guy is great. This guy, his name is James Charlesworth. And this one's on the pseudepigrapha, which is Enoch, and this one's on the Apocrypha. It's a 2-volume set on this, and it's a fantastic work. And from the 1980s, so it's a little dated, but still a very good work. But yeah, but what does this rocket scientist do? He presents it to you like it's fact. Enoch 91:16 is Revelation 21:21. Scholars don't even know what Enoch 91:16 actually says because of the scrolls they found from the Dead Sea Scrolls. So yet again, I have a video refuting celebrity Adventists who look like rank amateurs. Because of my recent and intense study of Daniel, I came to realize this also. In the Daniel scholarly community, Adventism is ignored or ridiculed because the Adventist thoughts on the book of Daniel are nowhere to be taken serious by anyone. Well, you know what? The same thing here in Enoch. Here is a fairly recent book which actually takes issue with the author of this book and the dating of the Enoch manuscripts. He actually believes in the similitudes. Now, just this book is written just on the similitudes, 37 to 71. He actually believes that those are written in the 1st century. Now, he actually believes that they were written about the time of the Maccabees. If he's correct, the book of Enoch may have been constructed after the book of Revelation was even written. So there's still debate in the scholarly community, but Adventists don't recognize that. They come out and just make pronouncements like they know. So, you know what I would love for Adventists to do? Because what I found out by reading this book is that this group, they meet every so often in Italy and discuss nothing but more archaeological evidence on the manuscripts and of Enoch that they have, and debate them. I would love to see these Adventist brilliant mind Dwight Nelson and Judd Lake show up at this conference, present a paper, and tell them that the Apostle John copied from the book of Enoch. Because you know what? You're not going to find it here. I'm not going to find any Adventist cited here. Matter of fact, if they did, they would laugh them off the stage. So please do that, Dwight Nelson. Show up there. Judd Lake, go ahead. Show up there and tell these Enoch scholars your great big finds. Because I would love to see their reaction. We can probably hear them laughing in the United States from Italy when you do that.